Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Cheryl Yuen. Here's a look at our top stories tonight. Former trade union leader Elizabeth Tang has been arrested by National Security Police, according to sources. Hong Kong's sole railway operator records a net profit of nearly $10 billion for last year. And older public hospitals are urged to conduct regular inspections to avoid structural mishaps. Former trade union leader Elizabeth Tang has reportedly been arrested by National Security Police. Sources say she was detained after visiting her jailed husband, former lawmaker Lee Cheuk-yen. Macy Mock reports.
Labor rights veteran Elizabeth Tang was seen handcuffed and accompanied by 2 police officers in Meifu Sanchun this evening. Another officer carried a suitcase. She had been taken to a flat in Meifu Sanchun for an hour-long search. Tang is the wife of former lawmaker Lee Cheuk-yen, who is behind bars while awaiting his national security trial. Sources said she was arrested by National Security Police after visiting Lee in Stanley Prison. The unionist is suspected of colluding with foreign powers to endanger national security. Tang was the chief executive of the Hong Kong Confederation of Trade Unions for 16 years until 2011. The union disbanded in October 2021 following the social unrest in 2019. For the past 9 years, Tang has been the General Secretary of the International Domestic Workers Federation. She was also a director of the Asia Monitor Resource Center. The center, which was previously based in Hong Kong, was accused by pro-Beijing newspaper Ta Kung Pao in 2021 of receiving over $100 million in donations from Europe and the United States. The organization, which is now based in South Korea, denied the allegations. Maisy Mock, HKIBC.
The MTR Corporation has reported a net profit of $9.8 billion for last year, despite being hit by COVID in the first half of 2022. The railway operator expects this year to be better as the city rebounds after the pandemic. Chloe Feng reports.
The 5th COVID wave last year had a massive impact on passenger numbers, but the MTR Corporation managed to report an annual net profit of $9.8 billion, a 2.9% rise from 2021, and the second straight profitable year. But its profit from recurrent earnings from transport operations and commercial and property rentals slumped over 91% to $157 million year-on-year. Hong Kong's sole railway operator expects it to be brighter this year as Hong Kong returns to normality along with a full reopening of the border.
And the domestic traffic has returned to over 90% of the pre-pandemic level. And for the cross-boundary, including Lower Lok Ma Chau and high-speed rail and the Airport Express line, have returned to around 50% of the pre-pandemic level. And the overall trend is encouraging. It is still rising, but of course, we hope this trend will continue.
A review of the railway's fare adjustment mechanism is underway and is expected to be completed during the middle of the year. Ridership last year dropped by 6% to 1.3 billion, pushing its transport operation deficit to $4.7 billion, up 12%. But property development with a net profit of over $10 billion provided some relief. The company will roll out 3 more projects for tender this year, including the one for Oyster Bay Phase 1 that was earlier withdrawn. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
A veteran engineer has urged older hospitals to carry out frequent inspections to avoid structural mishaps. This comes after cracks were found in the ceiling and walls of yet another hospital. Joanna Ho reports.
Immediate repairs were ordered to avert a potential risk following the latest hospital mishap. This came after cracks were found in the ceiling and walls of a staff changing room of Queen Elizabeth Hospital during an inspection yesterday. Rusty steel bars were exposed when engineers opened up the concrete slabs. The hospital's engineering department believes that there's no structural problem, but the area on the first floor has been cordoned off as a precaution. Repairs are expected to take 1 or 2 days. Just yesterday, the hospital authority addressed the ceiling collapse in Kwai Chung Hospital, where pieces of concrete fell in a pediatrics and adolescent psychiatric consultation room. That followed another case in Castle Peak Hospital in November. Greg Wong, a former president of the Hong Kong Institution of Engineers, said the 2 collapse cases could be a coincidence, as both hospitals had renovated their premises in recent decades. But he appealed for extra caution in older hospitals, such as Queen Elizabeth Hospital, which has been in service for 60 years.
If the ceiling only have 5 persons walk past by it every day, that is different from a building which has 500 people walk under it every day. In a hospital, you have a patient lying on the bed. You have doctors operating on an open heart surgery or open brain surgery. Of course, it's very important that the ceiling is secure.
Wong said older hospitals should conduct formal inspections every 1 or 2 years, and their staff should keep an eye for signs of structural distress. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
A government proposal to allow non-locally trained nurses to work in Hong Kong without taking the licensing examination has worried one practitioner. He voiced concerns over the qualifications of overseas nurses as lawmakers prepare to discuss the plan tomorrow. In order to work in Hong Kong, non-locally trained nurses must pass a licensing exam. But in a bid to ease a shortage, the government plans to amend the nurses' registration ordinance so that those who trained overseas can skip the exam. Registered nurse Cyrus Lau, however, has some reservations.
The Bureau has not announced the criteria and the number of years of clinical exposure prior to the registration for those overseas nurses, and also we don't have enough understanding on the education level and the prerequisites that required when they register in Hong Kong without any examination. And that's why we are in doubt that such implementation would put our patients in severe jeopardy.
Lau believes that the licensing exam serves as a standard for those who wish to work as nurses in Hong Kong. Under the government plan, foreign-trained nurses who have been employed full-time for a certain duration may be able to work in Hong Kong if the amendment is passed. Their employers will have to confirm that their work is satisfactory and they are competent. A 4-story Second World War building at 190 Nathan Road has been moved up a grade in the Historic Buildings table. Members of the Antiquities Advisory Board voted in favor of taking the 91-year-old structure to Grade 2 from Grade 3. It's the only wartime structure in Tsim Sha Tsui that was built in a European style. 2 years ago, the owner was given the green light to demolish it, but a conservationist group launched a campaign to have the building listed as Grade 1 so it can be preserved. Today's decision disappointed the group Walk in Hong Kong because as a Grade 2 building, 190 Nathan Road can still be demolished.
The sole reason is because of the issue of authenticity. The issue of authenticity should already been factored in when it earned a Grade 3 historical grading previously. So we expected the discussion on this upgrading just solely focus on the new historical evidence that we have gathered. If it earned a Grade 1 building, there would be more rooms for maneuver and negotiation with the landlords with the view to protect and safeguard the building.
Overseas, the ruling party in Georgia has decided to scrap a controversial bill following 2 nights of violent protests. The climb down came after police in the capital Tbilisi fired tear gas to disperse demonstrators. Dozens of people were detained and many injured. The unrest erupted after Parliament gave initial approval to a move to force groups receiving part of their funds from abroad to register as foreign agents. The protesters argued that the law would stifle press freedom. After evaluating the situation, the ruling party decided to abandon the bill. An American soldier became emotional as he told lawmakers in Washington that the U.S. pullout from the Afghan capital, Kabul, 2 years ago was shambolic.
The withdrawal was a catastrophe, in my opinion, and there was an inexcusable lack of accountability and negligence.
No one was held accountable.
No one was, and no one is to this day.
Vargas Andrews was describing a suicide bomb attack that killed 170 Afghan civilians and 13 U.S. soldiers. He himself was badly injured. The sergeant said he had spotted the suicide bombers and alerted his superiors, but they ignored him. Washington pulled out of Afghanistan in 2021 after a 20-year occupation. Thousands of Afghans who served the U.S. were left behind when the hardline Taliban seized power.
This war is not over for millions of people in Afghanistan and the U.S. Thoughts of those 2 weeks have plagued my mind since coming home. I see the faces of all the people we could not save, all those that we left behind. I wonder if our Afghan allies fled to safety or they were killed by the Taliban.
America is building a nasty reputation for multi-generational systemic abandonment of our allies that we leave as smoldering human wreckage from the Montagnards of Vietnam to the Kurds in Syria. Our veterans know something else that this committee might do well to consider. We might be done with Afghanistan, but it's not done with us.
Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed down 125 points. Top 10 active stocks: Tencent lost $9.40, Meituan lost $2.50. AIA gained 75 cents, and JD.com gained $1. Forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar: Euro at 8.29, British pound at 9.33, and the Australian dollar at 5.19. The London FTSE is currently down 44 points. Weak demand has led to consumer prices on the mainland climbing at the slowest pace in a year. The Consumer Price Index for last month rose 1% from a year earlier, compared with a 2.1% annual jump in January. Officials have set an inflation target of 3% for this year. Producer prices remained in deflation, with the sector's index falling 1.4%, mainly because commodities were cheaper. Finally, here's a sneak preview of the Hong Kong Flower Show, which returns tomorrow after a 3-year suspension. About 400,000 flowers will be featured during the 10-day Bliss in Bloom display in Victoria Park, but hydrangeas will take pride of place. Onto the weather now. March continues to be unusually warm and dry. Temperatures this weekend will range between 19 and 26 degrees. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Thursday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Cheryl Yuen. Thanks for watching. Good night.